Good day traders, this is Stefanos on behalf of Tixee, and in today's video we'll be giving a look back of the market for the week of the 7th of February until the 11th. Now before we get started, please note that all of the ideas discussed in this webinar are my own opinions and do not make up for any form of investment or trading advice, neither any recommendations to buy or sell. You should always do your own research and due diligence before buying or selling any securities, financial products or instruments, and whether you use any kind of trading strategies. Any information that relates to past performance is not indicative of future results. Now, for all of you tuning in for the very first time with regards to stocks, we currently have the Q4 of last year earnings season in full swing. It's something that we've been mentioning for the past couple of webinar series with regards to the lookbacks and outlooks. So it's definitely a period that you're going to be keeping an eye for in case you're looking to trade any stocks. It's essentially the period where major corporations come in and announce the results of the most recent financial reports. As we mentioned in last week's outlook, for this week we had Disney, Uber, and Pfizer reporting their figures. And we're just going to be breaking down one of them one by one. So we're going to be starting off with Disney. I'll just pull up the chart in the meantime so you can have a look as well, and just keep it on the daily time frame for the time being. Now, Disney, it beat both of its revenue as well as the earnings per share estimates by a convincing margin as well. The EPS estimate was beat by almost a 44% margin, whereas the revenue estimates were beaten by a margin of almost 8%, as the company reporting its revenues close to $22 billion. Now, Disney, I'm pretty sure you're all aware, but it has its streaming service, which is a direct competitor to Netflix as well. Its streaming service being Disney Plus, which also added 11.8 million subscribers in the last quarter, which also came in more than expected. The expected figure was an addition of 8.5 million subscribers instead. Now, another thing that's worth noting with regards to Disney, this marked their first century as the company was founded back in 1923. So I'm pretty sure maybe it's not something that really affected its stock price, but definitely an interesting fact to just to think about. Now, like we said, it beat both of the revenue and EPS estimates, and we could basically see this being reflected in the company's stock price when, the day after that it reported the figures. So it reported them in the after-hours session on Wednesday. So with the Thursday open, we can see that its stock price, it gapped up by as much as 5%. So you can see with Wednesday's close right here, and the open was right about here with the morning on Thursday. So you can see it was a pretty decent surge in price. The price did retrace a little bit, but it's still overall up. If we just switch on the weekly, it's still pretty much overall green on the week. Next up, we're going to be looking into Uber. So let me just find the chart for it as well. Just keep it on the daily for now. Now, Uber, interestingly, it reported a profit for the very first time after it also reported its figures on the same day as Disney, which was the after hours of Wednesday's close. Just like Disney, it also beat its revenue and earnings per share estimates, and also by a convincing margin as well. The revenue expectations were beat by a margin of almost 8%, where the EPS was beat by as much as 247%. So it's a pretty substantial figure again for a company the size of Uber. As countries slowly started easing restrictions and coming out of lockdowns, the company saw a boost in ride sharing, saying that the demand was approaching pre-pandemic levels, which is a key thing to note with regards to Uber as we slowly start coming out of lockdowns worldwide. Now, other than that, Uber CEO also made a statement saying that in Q4, and I quote, more consumers were active on their platform than ever before. Now, its share price gapped up by as much as 5.5% with the open at 9 a.m. Eastern on Thursday. So you can see this is the day that it reported the figure. Now, while it did gap up, we can see that the prices are now, they did dip quite strongly for the next 2 days. So despite the fact that it reported a pretty positive earnings report, we can see that overall on the week they're more or less down after they reached a high of almost $43. So you can see that, you know, earnings can be quite good in the sense that you know, they can set up some great opportunities for the day after or the day of the figure that is released, again depending on the actual results that are reported by the company. But again, that doesn't mean that's going to be the narrative for the rest of the week, as we can see with Uber as well. Now lastly, with the stocks, we're going to be looking at Pfizer. So just pull up the chart here as well. Keep it on the daily for now. Now Pfizer, well, it beat its EPS expectations. It actually missed the revenue estimate by as much as $300 million. Now to me, this is something that, you know, it came in as a surprise, considering it's one of the key drug makers when it comes to the COVID-19 vaccine. Moreover, the company has been also accused of pandemic profiteering by the group Global Justice Now, which basically mentioned that Pfizer's annual revenue of $81 billion is even more than the GDP of most countries. They also accused them of ripping off the public health systems as well. Now, this was also reflected in the company's stock price. The company reported its figures on Tuesday morning in pre-market hours, and its shares dipped by as much as 5% on the day. So if we just look at the date, Tuesday was essentially the 8th, so we can see here with the open that we had a pretty strong gap down from the close here. So you can see it closed at around about $53, and then it opened all the way down to close to $51. Now it did end the day in the green, but if I switch on the weekly time frame, we can see that overall it's trading lower on the week. So yeah, this is with regards to the major corporations who reported their figures during the last week. For next week, for those interested, the ones to look out for are Walmart, Nvidia, and Yandex, all of which are available on tixee's platform. Again, while they're not the only major ones, of course, there's more. There's some of the key ones who could be worth keeping on our radars. Now we're just going to move on to Forex, which was also quite an interesting week. We had a mix of data reports as well as speeches by the ECB and Bank of France. I'll just pull up the euro dollar in the meantime. Switch on to the daily. A highlight of the week, I'm pretty sure most of you would have heard, is the fact that the US inflation reported a figure of 7.5% year over year, which is also the highest since 1982. Now, this likely prompted the case for the president of the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, who stated that he's in full support of raising the rates by as much as a full percentage point come July. And I quote what he said: "I'd like to see 100 basis points in the bag by July 1st. Now, while the US dollar strengthened throughout the week, I would have actually expected it to cover some more ground given the several hints we received with regards to rate hikes. But if we look at the euro dollar right here, we can see that it dropped by as much as 1.17% or 134 pips. And if we just want to add a couple of indicators, again, you can just add the ones of your preference. But for the sake of simplicity, I will add the RSI and 21 period EMA. Again, the parameters can always be easily adjusted simply by right-clicking on the relevant indicator. I'll set my EMA to 21 exponential, and I'll just keep the RSI at the default reading of 14 period. So we can see that the price is roundabout trading right onto the 21 EMA, with the RSI also on the right on the midpoint, which is the 50 level. Again, while we did see the strength coming in for the dollar, we have expected it, the euro dollar specifically, to drop somewhat more. But again, like we said, it just dropped 134 pips on the week. Now, if I switch and have a look at the pound dollar now, we can see that the pound dollar was more or less unchanged on the week. Now the headlines coming out of the UK were the fact that the government plans to scrap COVID restrictions for England at the very least as early as the 24th of February, which is pretty much in 2 weeks' time. And this is also coming sooner than expected, as the original estimate was at the end of March rather than the end of February. So this is something that may have strongly boosted the single currency's values, and which is why we could see that it pretty much went nowhere, as we had some strength in the euro, in the US dollar. We also had some strength in the pound. So overall, it's pretty much unchanged on the week. It rose by mere 0.17% or 22 pips. Now, while we did have a decent range, again, I'm just talking about the overall change on the week, which was 22 pips. Now, next up, we're going to look into oil prices. Now, with oil prices, something that's it's pretty much on a tear, because as we can see, it's posted its 8th consecutive week in the green, which is something that we could have seen here, but here if we measure them, it was 1, 2, 3, 6, it was 7. So it's pretty much posting a new streak with regards to this year at the very least. And we can see that their pretty much prices are nearing, they're in the mid 90s, close to the 100 level. Now, the gain probably would have come off the back of the still unresolved tensions between the US and Russia, something that has been going on for the past couple of weeks. As we can also see, it's something that may also be reflected by the oil prices. We also had further drone strikes in the Middle East, with Israel responding to Syrian anti-air missiles on Wednesday. And furthermore, let's not forget the weekly oil inventories report, which for this week it showed a greater decrease in supplies, which also could have boosted oil prices further. Now, overall on the week, crude oil was up by as much as 2.8%. You can see it's clear of the 21 EMA, well above that as well. The RSI is giving a reading of 71, which again, something that I repeat every week, depending on your parameters. This could be considered as an overbought level. If you're using slightly less sensitive parameters, so like the 80 level and 20, then this is obviously still not giving an overbought reading. Next up, we'll just go on to gold. Keep it on the daily time frame. So it's a pretty clear picture what happened with gold. The yellow metal also enjoyed a pretty strong boost in prices, given the heightened tensions between Ukraine and Russia, as well as the conflicts in the Middle East. Prices rose by as much as 3%, or $55 dollars on the week, with the RSI also giving a reading of 66. Now its prices, if I just switch this on the weekly time frame and zoom out a little bit, you can see that we've been more or less in a range here from the start of May 21 all the way to today. We can see like prices have been ranging between this level right here, the structural level, as well as the higher end right here, and we've been just ranging in between this consolidation area. So you can see all gold prices are now pushing towards the upper side of this consolidation phase. So it's going to be interesting to see whether we can break above it. And let's not forget this level here, which is the 2100 mark, close to the 2100 mark, is the all-time high. So if I zoom out all the way, it's going to be interesting to see if we can actually retest the all-time high when it comes to gold. And yep, this is pretty much it with regards to the look back and review for this week. Let's not forget the companies who will be reporting their figures for next week, which again, it's Nvidia and Yandex, some of the key ones, as well as Walmart. So if these are the stocks that you're interested to look into, you can definitely keep them in your radar. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video and you found it useful, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Until then, trade safe.